Hi everyone, thank you for watching. In this video we're going to look at proper indentation for Python multi-line strings. Let's just start by clarifying what we mean by a multi-line string and also why indentation is important. One of the key things with Python is making our code readable for other users. So when we're writing our code, one of the things we should be thinking about always is if someone else was going to read our code, how easy would it be for them to understand what we're trying to do. Now, if in the example here, I've put my string on a relatively long line, so it's no matter how much experience you have coding in Python, making your code readable is vital, so very, very long lines need to be split. If we're looking at readability, this contradicts, this doesn't correspond with what we're trying to achieve. So multi-line strings help us make our code readable for other users, which is a key Python requirement. Indentation, on the other hand, is less about how our code looks, so it's less about the aesthetics of the code and more about how the interpreter understands the code and reads the code, and therefore if we want to use our string in any way, how it executes the string. So if we don't get the indentation right, we could have issues not only with the interpreter understanding the code and doing what we want it to do, but also throwing up errors because our indentation isn't correct. So readability, so the multi-line strings are about readability, indentation is about execution of the code from the interpreter. So let's look at how we create a multi-line string. There are three ways of doing it with Python primarily. There's a triple quotes method, there's a brackets method, and there's a backslash method. And we're going to look at all of these in more detail. Let's start with the triple quotes method. So this is one of the most commonly used methods of creating multi-line strings, and we can either use single quotes, and what you see happens is if I type in 3 single quotes, I get the other 3 automatically, and from a Python perspective, anything in between these quotes is considered part of our string. So there's single quotes, and you can also use double quotes. So again, the same thing. The moment I do 3 quotes, it gives me the other 3 because the interpreter knows I'm trying to do a string, a multi-line string, so it will do that for me. So we can use single quotes or double quotes. The method is the same. So let's write our string again, and what we'll do is we'll put our single quotes, because I think that's just easier, 3 single quotes, and what I can do is just copy across the actual string from up here, and I'll just put it in here. Okay, so what this allows me to do is if I just press the enter key, I can actually make different strings. And because you can probably see from the highlighting of the text here, everything that I've put inside these triple quotes is considered part of the string. If I did the same thing over here, for example, if I just press the enter button here, what you can see has happened is that Python hasn't recognized, because I've pressed enter and I haven't used triple quotes, just the normal quotation marks, it's assumed that I'm trying to do something else. It hasn't worked out. I haven't been able to tell it that the second line up here is actually part of my string. When I use the triple quotes, as you can see that works. So that's great. So we have our multi-line string. It looks better, doesn't it? But it's still not what I would say readable. So how are we going to make this more readable? I think we can indent it. And what we normally do is we normally indent so that it lines up with our quotation, with our quote marks over there. So each line can line up with our quote marks. Okay, so there you go. So we've created a multi-line string and we've indented it. You may be thinking that's the video done, and wasn't that nice and easy? And unfortunately not, because yes, while it looks great, it's readable, the indentation has to work. So what that means is that it has to actually serve the purpose we want it to do. So we want our string, for example, if we want to print it, we want to make sure that this actually prints the way we want to do it. If we want to post-process it, we call it post-process. If we want to post-process or execute the code in any way, it has to execute the way that we want it to do. So let me just try printing it, and let's see what we think. If the output is going to be the nicely formatted string, we hope it will be. Unfortunately not. So what's happened is Python has assumed that my white space over here and my white space over here is actually part of the string, because I've included it in the indentation. So I've included it, in these triple quotes. So like I say, when I do triple quotes, Python assumes that anything, white space, indentation, included in the triple quotes is part of our string. So as we're now looking at just indentation, there are two ways that we can indent this correctly so that when we print it, it gets closer to what we're actually trying to achieve. There are two Python built-in modules we can use. One's called text wrap, and the other one is called the inspect module. They're both built in, so we don't have to download them, we just have to import them. Let's have a look at these two modules one by one. Let's start off with the text wrap. So let me import the text wrap module first of all. Okay, and what this is going to do, so there's a function here called dedent, and when I run my string through the function, what it will do is it will remove any common leading white space from every line. So let's have a look. So if we do our string again, and I'm going to run the string through the function, so run it through, it's called text wrap dedent. So if you can see that, so what I need to do is actually need to open brackets, and then because I'm running the whole string through this function, through the text wrap dedent, 3 quotation marks, and I'm going to copy my string across it. Just tidy it up so it looks nice. And there we go. So what I can do is if I do a backslash over here, what I'm telling Python is I want this next line to be the first line. So I'm just gonna so I've actually white space, so I've indented every single line consistently. But what this function should do, what the text wrap dedent should do, it should tell Python that I want to get rid of all the common white space. So now if I print my string, as you can see, it's all nicely lined up to the left over here. All the common white space has disappeared, has gone, and Python has understood that I don't want that as part of my string. The string is just the text itself. Now you notice the key thing, and I've said this I think 3 times over here, is that it's all about the common white space. So let's have a look at what happens if we don't make the white space common. So let me just let's do another string. So this time the string equals, and let's copy our string here. Okay, but this time instead of it all being common, I'm going to make it a bit different. There you go. So there's the white space, as you can see, isn't common. It's all a bit different. Now what I'm going to do, I'm just going to pull this up a bit because I know that I'm getting quite far down my screen. So there we go. So what happens if I print it? Now you probably have seen that I haven't actually put my string in the text wrap dedent model. I just want to show you there's a different way of actually calling this function, which is I can just call it in my print statement as well. It doesn't make any difference. It's just another way of doing it. So it will still run my string through the text wrap dedent module. Let's see what happens this time. So what you can see is that yes, it is all lined up to the left, but because the white space isn't common, so there's different white space here, there's different amount of white space there, it hasn't aligned my text. It's assumed that all the white space is different. So that is the big issue. One of the issues with this module, text wrap, is that it only works if our white space is common. The other module we can use to indent our multiline string is the inspect module, and again this is a inbuilt Python module, so we don't have to node anything, we just have to import it. So I'm going to import inspect, and the module we want to use within inspect is called cleandoc. Okay, so let's just copy my string from before just to show you how it works. So exactly the same. Oops. So instead of the text wrap dedent, we're going to use the inspect module, and and the function is cleandoc. So there we go. Again, what it's done is taken out the white space, and it's aligned everything to the left. But again, this is common white space. So let's have a look what happens if we do what we did with the text wrap and we actually use uneven white space. So what the inspect cleandoc function should do is it should actually align everything, rather than with this first one here, it aligns everything with the second line. So as we go down our layers of indentation, rather than everything having to be consistent, inspect cleandoc will assume that the second line is where our indentation actually starts to affect our code. So anything we want indented after the second line is indented for a reason. Let me show you what I mean. Hopefully it'll be clearer then. And again, I can run the inspect cleandoc in my print function. It does exactly the same thing. It's just a different way of calling it. And I'm just going to make sure our string passes through the function. And yeah, as you can see, hopefully the first and second lines are all aligned, and then our third line here is aligned. The indentation is actually aligned with the second line. So that gap here, which you can see there, that gap between the M and the V in my original string has been copied when I've done my output. So that's the triple quotes method. Now we're going to have a look at the other methods for creating multi-line strings, which is the brackets and the backslash. Okay, so now let's look at the backslash method, which is an alternative to the triple quotes. And what we're doing here is we're basically going to enclose our string in brackets. So let me get my string from over here. So what we do is we have our string, and I'm going to start it with brackets, and then I've got my, let me start off with all the same line. It's probably easier that way. So let me bring it all up here. So I'm getting rid of all my white space. I'm starting off basically with my original string. I've opened the brackets there. I've put the quotation marks in. Now I want to come multiline there. So what I can do, actually close that string, press the enter button, and what you can see happens is that it's indented according to me just pressing the enter button. It's indented in line with the brackets. So with this method, with the brackets method, I have to make each line almost a separate string. Oops, sorry, by closing brackets, pressing enter, and the indentation is done automatically, which is great. And as long as I enclose my brackets, it will assume that everything within those brackets is part of my multi-line string. Now, the key thing here, it obviously solves our indentation issue, but let's see what happens if we want to post-process our code. So again, we're just going to try printing it, which is the easiest way of post-processing it, just to make sure it does it execute where we want it to. Okay, so although we've got it on multi-lines, Python has actually assumed that we want everything as one line of code. So it's joined actually our strings together, which could be good, but the thing to bear in mind is that the formatting. So it's all okay up to here, but as you can see over here, over here we've got so and the very basically and as one word, and that's because over here, as you can see, all I did, there was so, and after the so I just pressed enter, so that there's no white space. So what I have to do is actually make sure my my original string is correctly formatted so that the white spaces work. So now if I print that again, yeah, so very, very. Now if I wanted it on different lines, I actually have to tell Python that I want it on different lines, and how we do that is by inserting new line breaks. So I'd have to actually physically tell Python that I want a break there, and that's the code for a line break. \n, I want a new line there, and I don't have to do there because that's the end anyway. So now if I print my string, I have it on different lines. But again, as you can see, because I have a space over here, which I did before, that space, over there, that space has come out when I've actually printed it, so it's taken on the white space from the original string. So this is the brackets method is very good because it gives you the right indentation, but if you're trying to print, for example, afterwards, you need to make sure that the formatting is correct in your original string, so that the formatting when you're trying to print your statement actually delivers what you want it to. That could be white space, could be further indentation, new lines, whatever it is. You have to format your string properly from the outset in order for this to work. So that is the brackets method, and the last method we're going to look at today is the backslash method. So the last method we're going to look at today is the backslash method, and this is an alternative way to again create multi-line strings, and it's very similar to the brackets method in that we have to enclose each line in our quotation marks, but it has, this is my least favorite, to be honest, because I think it's more work than the others. Let me just show you what I mean. Let's just do our string again. So our string equals, and let me just copy this. Let me copy it from here actually. Copy our initial string. We put it all on one line just so we can start from scratch. So I'm getting rid of all the indentation and white spaces, so we're basically working from the same base of code, which again I could have copied from the top, which is probably more easy. So what we do with this is we have to enclose, like I say, each line in quotes, so each line is almost an individual string. So let's supposing we want to end it there, and then there and there. Oops. So what I need to do is after each line that I want to make a multi-line, I need to put a backslash in. So over here I can do backslash if I press enter, and over here again backslash enter. Now what I hope you've noticed is that unlike with the brackets method, my string hasn't been indented. So I've got multi-lines, but it hasn't been indented properly. So I would actually have to make this look good the way we want it, to make it readable, I would need to manually indent everything, which is obviously not great, but that's let's see if it line up. Oops. Make it line up, and now if I print it, so you can see it's all printed on one line, and also we had the same issue we had with the brackets method, where the so and the very over here have been combined, because although I have a new line, or sorry, not a new line, although I have my backslash here to say it's part of the same string, because it hasn't been formatted, because there's no space between the S and the V, it's assumed it's just joined the two words together. So again, what I'd have to do here is manually format it, and once more, if I wanted to actually put new lines in, I'd have to actually put the physical code for a new line on every one. And if I print that again, it comes on different lines, but again we have because formatting is important, I have to manually format it. We've got different levels of indentation when I'm trying to print it out, so I have to sort that out. And as you can see, it's a bit more hassle than the brackets method, in that it doesn't properly indent, which isn't great. But then we have the same issue that we had with the brackets method, which is we have to get our formatting correct in order for it to execute the way we want to. So those are the three methods of creating multi-line strings and indenting them properly. I hope it's made some sense. Just like to summarize by saying, look, one of the best things for me about working in Python is that there's never only one answer. It's basically Python gives you options, and it's your job, part of learning, is to find the most appropriate solution that really best suits your requirements and works best for you as a programmer. For me personally, of the different methods we've looked at in this article or in this video, that there's only really one that offers the most logical solution, and that's the enclosing our multi-line string in the triple quotes and using the inspect clean doc module, importing it. It's a built-in Python module. It's there for a reason, and what it does is it helps us align our code, and any indentation it prints or any indentation it executes, it assumes is there for a reason. So it gives you a bit of consistency. The brackets and the backslash, too heavy for me in terms of having to format your code and having to make sure it's formatted in the original string of code to make sure it executes the way you want it to. If it's printing, make sure it's printing the way you want it to. That's my opinion. That's the one that I would use. But obviously, like I say, Python's here to give you options, and I hope this has been useful in providing you some options of how to properly indent your multi-line strings in Python. Thank you for listening.